Good day. My name is Edgar Winters, and I'm Executive Director of Oregon Agricultural Food and Rural Consortium in Southern Oregon. And we're here today in Winnipeg for the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, and I'm with the Executive Director of that alliance. And I'd like to introduce her to you today. And her name is Kim Shukla, and I hope I pronounced that right?
You did it.
All right, fantastic. And we wanted to do a little interview with her, and since they've been doing industrial hemp since 1998, and we passed our same bill in Oregon in 1998, but they have been doing processing and execution of industrial hemp. We're here in Oregon, we've just been talking about it. So we're wanting to get together with the people who have the know-how, and since Kim is the Executive Director of the Alliance, she could inform our alliance with our consortium and our Oregonians who are going to be growing industrial hemp this spring. So I'd like to have her say a few words about what her alliance does here in Canada.
Absolutely. Thanks, Edgar, for the opportunity. It's in 2003, the Canadian hemp trade, as individuals got together and decided it was important to have an alliance to act as representation to government for funding, and as well as just to provide an opportunity for those in the hemp sector to get together, to network and to learn, because it was new for all of us.
How many members are on the board of the alliance?
We have a board of directors of 10 plus an individual from the government who sits on as an observer, and we just finished electing our new board for 2014-2015.
What is the diversification of those people on the board?
Oh, the board is a great makeup of manufacturers and processors, the farmers, which are key for us from our three prairie provinces, and also representation from now BC right through to Quebec.
Great. Our consortium is mostly an educational service network, and what we're trying to do is to educate more and more people on the viability of industrial hemp. Not in Canada, because you already know most about it, but in Oregon and the other 22 states that are qualified to grow industrial hemp. Are there any suggestions that you could give us on our first year of industrial hemp production?
Small,
and cultivation?
slow, and steady. That was a lesson that all of our producers have learned, and even today, when we talk about some of our producers having, 8,000 acres and more, they started off with 100 acres. They needed to know, what type of seed variety they should be using, what their cultivation practices should be, if there was any sort of herbicides that could be used or not. There were so many factors that were unknown that they just put small acres in. The other part that was really critical to Canada's success was to make sure that we had all of the pieces in place so that there was an industry. Those pieces being, we know farmers can grow whatever you put the task to them. They can grow anything.
For sure.
The problem always is that the infrastructure isn't in place to take that crop. In Canada, we've had examples of crop failures in the fact that we've gone into many different products because the producer's seen a new opportunity, they've grown the product, and it could be even an animal. Let's say ostrich and wild boar are good examples in Canada. What they found is there was no market for it, meaning that yes, there was an end market for it, but there was no one in between to manage the processing and handling for them. So I think as the U.S. begins to sort of take off in this project, I think the importance is to make sure that the zeal doesn't let the farmers get ahead of there being a proper processing establishment in place to manage the crop for them.
Right. I know in Oregon we do a lot of consulting work with farmers, and their first question they asked was, what am I going to get paid for this, first of all, and where am I going to take this to get my money? And that's their main concern, which is a good concern.
It's absolutely legitimate.
It is,
absolutely.
and so they're kind of worried. The DEA kind of scared them away. But the more that we show the U.S. how Canada is doing their program, I think it would help us in our end project. And I was just wondering. Are there any suggestions that we at the consortium in Oregon should take from you and your alliance here in Canada?
Well, I think one of the smart things that Oregon has already done is to have you three come up here to listen and just take part and sort of absorb what the industry is about and what the industry itself has learned as lessons. So I think that's an important step. And now to take that information back and just very carefully start to step through with next year. you heard about from our seed breeders panel, the concern that many of them have with the shipping of Canadian seed across the line. So that is not going to go away anytime soon.
No.
And for us to receive multiple calls from farmers from Oregon wanting seed is not, we're not going to be able to provide an answer.
It's not going to be feasible at this time.
No. So it's going to have to come through organizations like yours and affiliation with state universities to determine whether, how this can be done, because you don't even know what varieties are going to work in Oregon.
No, and most of the farmers ask me, well, I asked them first, I said, what are you growing the hemp for? Are you growing it for fiber, or are you growing it for food, or are you growing it for seeds, or for seed stock? And they don't really know. So, well, we're thinking about growing it for all those things.
Well, you can't.
You can't.
What we know is you can't do that. So part of the education process will be for them to determine from what their farming practices are and what they have experience in to figure out if they are a seed producer already, they might want to stick to seed production, right? And if they're doing other biomass products, they might want to stick to the fiber. But those are things that they have to figure out before they start throwing seed in the ground.
Right, and our USDA program in Oregon, they had a problem with the importation of seeds, and they didn't know what to really do about it, and they were going to try to bail out the Ukraine this past summer and buy their seed stock. And I told them, I said, well, you can't go and buy that seed stock just for the sake of buying seed stock. I said, first of all, we're not even on the same parallel. I said, we're at the 43rd parallel, and I think Canada's around the 45th. And some of the stock that they wanted was for seed stock. We were very concerned about the pedigrees of the foundation seed stock. They didn't know the difference between monolysis and dioisis, and they were wondering which style of strain should we be interested in Oregon?
Well, that's part of the conversation that your state university's got to have with the plant breeders here in Canada, and Canada would probably be your most likely source because of the proximity.
It's the quickest.
But then what has to happen is there has to be a proper import and export arrangement made with our Health Canada, your DEA, to get seed into your research institute to start doing trials and to start doing a multiplication of seed.
What I found with the DEA, I've actually applied for my DEA application, and the first question that they asked on the application is, who is the provider that's going to sell you those seeds?
Right.
And the DEA says, we cannot give any permit out until we get that person or entity to sell you those seeds.
That's correct.
And so I haven't been able to do that because no one wants to go and cross the line and do that.
Right.
So I was just curious, what implementation should we be viable doing? Working with the state or still working with the
both
with the DEA?
Both. You have to work with the state. You have to work with the DEA in your realm. Then you have to find a seed supplier in Canada that is prepared to apply to Health Canada for an export license.
Right.
Then once your supplier in Canada has a letter from DEA saying there's not going to be any issue with the seed and that import permit from your end of things, then it should be safe sailing. It's a horrendous lot of paperwork, but then there's a proper trail, number one, of where the seed came from, and number two, nobody's going to get into trouble because we've all followed what the rules are. Where we're seeing these ridiculous stories about stuff being mysteriously shipped across the line without anyone knowing, that's bogus. Everyone knows what's going on, and it's not a proper practice. There are protocols in place, and if we want to make this business legitimate and we want to make a partnership between the Canada and U.S. legitimate, we have to follow the guidelines.
That is correctly right. And I'd like to stop at this point and thank Kim for taking the time out and giving us her opinion on industrial hemp for the state of Oregon and the U.S.
Thanks, Edgar.
Thank you so much.